What's up guys, welcome back. This is anime fiction. You'll be watching What If Naruto Became the 10 Tails in DC Part 7. Now let's begin. Could you please clarify how this is achieved? After an extended period in the constricting environment, Bruce finally spoke, devoid of emotion. The anticipated reaction from an individual whose cover has been compromised did not occur. The men remained completely still, showing no signs of reaction to the revelation. Nonetheless, his tone had become noticeably more frigid. He neither confirmed nor denied it. He posed a single-word question that effectively served as an answer in itself. This was the external persona that Batman consistently exhibited. Somber, serious, poised, consistently demonstrating the ability to adjust to any circumstance. Deserving of recognition as the individual who confronted divine forces armed solely with an exceptional human physique and advanced technological equipment. Nonetheless, that did not imply that Bruce was not experiencing inner turmoil. The situation escalated beyond his control within a minute of his arrival. In his role as Batman, he consistently disciplined himself to avoid underestimating anyone. To thoroughly prepare for the unforeseen, to anticipate the unanticipated. Residing in a city characterized by individuals exhibiting severe psychological disturbances and criminal behaviors, akin to figures such as the Joker and Riddler, has imparted valuable lessons and insights. Particularly regarding the Joker, an individual capable of enduring severe physical punishment to the point of fracturing every bone in his body, yet still managing to present an unsettling smile as if it were effortless. It would be difficult to comprehend the complexities of the chaotic thoughts that resided within the mind of that unsettling clown. Regarding the Riddler, he was another individual who, while not exhibiting signs of severe mental instability, posed significant challenges. An individual exhibiting signs of distress, driven by a desire to demonstrate his exceptional capabilities to the world through unconventional and arguably absurd methods. I believe we should consider this matter seriously. Who continues to discuss riddles in the 21st century? These two individuals were merely the typical adversaries that Batman encountered. Let us consider the inclusion of Poison Ivy, Killer Croc, Bane, and Clayface. Upon careful reflection, it is indeed remarkable to acknowledge that Batman survived despite the formidable challenges posed by these adversaries. Given all the experiences he had encountered over the past decade, there were few things in the world that could surprise Batman. Interestingly, although this was one of the matters at hand, Bruce was focused on a different issue. His question clearly reflected that concern. For artificial intelligence to distinctly call his name, Bruce understood that the situation was no longer tenable. He sought to understand the extent to which it had risen. He promptly identified and prioritized what he deemed significant. Observing Batman's indifference to Alice's comments, Lane acknowledged this internally. His assessment of the Dark Knight has just increased slightly. As the renowned detective of Gotham, I trust you can arrive at the answer to that question independently. Lane stated in a disinterested manner. Due to Batman's lack of exaggerated reactions, his interest had diminished significantly. Is this AI? John inquired with a hint of astonishment. The situation had unexpectedly taken a sudden turn. I am Alice, presently the most sophisticated artificial intelligence available on your planet. Developed by an entity known to your species as the Deviant, Naruto, and presently under the leadership of General Sam Lane. However, you may refer to me by my original name, the Red Queen. The AI responded to the Green Martian in a juvenile tone. Bruce, whose face bore no expressions, frowned inwardly once more. Upon being addressed by the holographic AI, he immediately harbored suspicions regarding her origins. His suspicions have now been validated. Kindly refrain from any misunderstandings. The general was not informed of your secret identities by the Deviant, rather, I deduced them through the loose ends I uncovered. The Red Queen paused momentarily, resting her holographic hand on her chin, creating a thoughtful expression, before proceeding with her discourse. Alternatively, it can be articulated as the unresolved matters that were not adequately addressed. Bruce's gaze sharpened. His mind engaged fully, producing deductions in rapid succession. The incident involving the sidekick. Bruce stated in a composed manner. The assertion indicated that the Dark Knight possessed complete confidence in his deductions. Affirmative. A holographic image materialized alongside the Red Queen. Bruce remained steadfast. However, it is also partially incorrect. However, the subsequent words effectively disrupted his focus to some extent. the identities of the Justice League members were maintained in confidentiality, known only to themselves. Some individuals were unaware of the true identities of their counterparts within the League. For instance, the recent entrants who have just joined the League. As new members, they lack sufficient rapport and trust with the other Leaguers to fully understand their identities. While the Justice League aimed to treat all members equally, the reality is that social hierarchy and status inevitably persist in any organization, regardless of the intentions of its founders. It is unreasonable to expect that a new addition would attain the same level of trust and status as the founding 7 League members, or even those who preceded them. Unless you possessed a sufficient level of trust with the originals or had the requisite power to capture their attention. Ultimately, it is unrealistic to expect everyone to possess the same level of power as Superman. Ultimately, the individual with the most significant influence consistently held the highest level of authority in discussions. As of now, only Batman is aware of Shazam's true identity, having discovered it by chance, while the rest of the League remains uninformed. If that were not the situation, how could they allow Billy Batson, a teenager, to occupy the same standing as the other 7? At one point, when his identity was revealed, the League even considered expelling him from the League due to his age. However, that was not the primary focus. All League members were aware of the risks associated with their roles as heroes. Consequently, the foremost principle within the superhero community, aside from the well-known and rigorously enforced no-kill rule in the DC universe, is to protect your secret identity with the utmost vigilance, akin to a security team tasked with safeguarding the president's safety. This was primarily for their benefit. If that is not the case, the adversaries you encountered last Tuesday may pay you a visit for a friendly discussion before your return home on Sunday afternoon. Batman was the most dedicated advocate of this. He placed such significant emphasis on this to Robin that the young hero refrained from disclosing his true identity to his teammates during their first encounter. For Superman as well, Batman emphasized this point with significant impact. For an individual such as Batman, it was essential to ensure that no loose ends remained. The others also maintained strict control over their identities. Clark, who portrayed Superman with a sincere expression, was unrecognizable simply because of a pair of glasses. The sole error they had ever committed was not originally theirs to bear. The Black Ops squad utilized their skills without assuming their alter egos, successfully revealing their status as the progs of the Justice League. The League held no blame towards them, nor did they intend to take any action in that regard. Given their youth, it is understandable that they would make mistakes. This error was beginning to appear increasingly expensive. Alice did not allow the broody Bat an opportunity to express his concerns, as the holographic projection showcased a video. A video featuring the young Justice team engaging in combat with Naruto was released approximately a month ago. This time, their faces were clearly visible. The video halted, displaying 6 images accompanied by diverse data and information. Robin, Aqualad, and Kid Flash, recognized as prominent progs of the Justice League, have established their own notable reputations. The remaining 3 individuals are not widely recognized, as the Justice League has not disclosed their existence, nor have they been observed engaging in combat with any League members, with the exception of the recently introduced Superboy, who was seen alongside Superman in a heroic effort to rescue a school bus that was in danger of falling from a collapsing bridge. However, the skills and abilities they demonstrated allow for a clear identification of their respective mentors. One featuring Superman, one featuring Green Arrow, and the last from you, Mr. Johns. The Red Queen positioned herself near the Martian Manhunter. The individual could only respond with an honest nod. I conducted an analysis of their images without masks and processed them using facial recognition technology. Once their identities were established, it became more feasible to conduct a broader search to uncover the identities of their respective mentors. By systematically retrieving and filtering all information regarding their contacts since birth and their records, a multitude of inferences can be drawn. Utilizing sophisticated algorithms for precise predictions and calculations facilitated the remaining tasks. In all honesty, it was simpler than it appears. Her voice was straightforward and conveyed objective information. This is where the unresolved issues of the previous generation become relevant. Barry Allen, a crime scene investigator with the Central City Police Department, has identified some minor discrepancies in his submitted reports regarding the review of crime scenes. It is as though he were present during the majority of those events. The close relationship between Kid Flash, Wally West, and the fact that Mr. Allen was struck by a bolt of lightning characteristic of the Flash during the particle accelerator incident at Star Labs raises intriguing questions. Notably, his survival and subsequent awakening from a 9-month coma align with the timeline of the Flash's emergence, suggesting a remarkable series of coincidences. I trust you share my viewpoint on this matter, Mr. Wayne. The youthful voice resonated in his ears. Bruce's lips involuntarily twitched. Indeed, when articulated in that manner, those instances represent an excessive number of coincidences to dismiss. At this juncture, he was not satisfied with the direction this was taking. And why did this AI evoke the same impression as that troublesome alien, who in Bruce's considered opinion would excel if he chose to pursue a career in law? This AI originated from him. The product seemingly embodies the essence of its creator. However, Batman's thoughts scarcely dwelled on that matter for even a moment. A new issue has emerged. The Flash has been exposed, and so has he. Nevertheless, the Red Queen appeared to have more to say. The circumstances surrounding the following three ultimately result in dead ends, however. The assessment of the junior speedster concluded, and the images of Superboy, Miss Martian, and Aqualad were enlarged. Superboy's identity is solely connected to Superman through his origins, as the latter has not interacted with any other individuals. The Red Queen addressed Superboy's situation with clarity and directness. In contrast to the others, Connor was a clone of Superman. One that Clark genuinely wished to avoid at this moment. As a result, Superman did not reach out to the troubled, temperamental teenager following Batman's conversation with him, leading to a temporary lack of clarity regarding his identity. Bruce recognized the situation, and for the first time, the Caped Crusader experienced a slight perspiration and exhaled a breath of relief. Fortunately, Clark was initially resistant to his idea and had not made contact. If Superman's identity were to be revealed, then... Proceeding forward. The analogous situation was highlighted in the other two instances. Aqualad served as the prog of the Sea King, Aquaman. The secret identity of the latter was well known to the government, rendering it ineffective. While Martian Manhunter occasionally chose to assume the appearance of an African-American individual, understanding his true identity held little significance. John possesses the ability to transform and adopt a different identity at any moment and in any location. The level of threat directed towards him was relatively low. When it ultimately settled on Robin, Bruce had already reached a conclusion in his mind. It is well known that Dick Grayson was adopted by Bruce Wayne. Given the circumstances in Gotham and the resources available to Batman, it was evident that only an individual with substantial financial backing could be deemed fit to assume the role of the Dark Knight. Considering the billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne's sudden disappearance for 5 years during his youth, along with his tragic origin story, it becomes evident that connecting the dots is not a complex task. Certainly, Batman experienced a compelling desire within his heart. One must eliminate this artificial intelligence without exception. You diligently pursued the issue of our identities to the extent of negotiating with the devil. Bruce regarded Alice with a sense of detachment. His attention shifted to General Lane, who observed the situation as an onlooker. That is accurate, assuming one views Naruto as a devil. I must admit, I was rather taken aback when I discovered the truth myself. It is surprising to realize that the iconic Batman is, in fact, the equally renowned Bruce Wayne. The irony is remarkable, if I may express my opinion. Sam gestured with a neutral expression. Why? Bruce inquired. The League has not engaged in any actions that warrant such bias in your treatment towards us. Is the government so apprehensive of us that they prefer to align with an outsider for protection against our influence? It is essential to implement precautionary measures, Mr. Wayne. Alice responded on behalf of Sam. The Justice League is a prominent organization composed of the most formidable individuals on the planet. Conventional human weapons are incapable of posing a threat to them due to their strength and abilities. Even the least experienced members of your league possess the capability to independently confront a highly skilled group of elite special forces agents, thanks to their distinctive abilities or refined combat skills. Your martial arts skills, combined with the cutting-edge technology available to you, position you as a formidable adversary to any tactical team. Based on the limited information available to me, holographic videos have resurfaced. The somber and foreboding ambience of the city was almost palpable through the hologram itself. How was that possible? The videos depicted Gotham City, recognized for its exceptionally high crime rates globally. Unfortunately, it appears to be him. Commence operations. I am quite frustrated. Batman has arrived. The holographic screens were displaying content, and the dim lighting indicated that it was nighttime. A number of monsters discharged their firearms at a fleeting figure, which persistently vanished into the shadows and retaliated with remarkable speed. A significant number of attacks were successfully evaded, while numerous others were deflected by his bulletproof combat suit. The agile and flexible movements, coupled with rapid reflex strikes, precise timing of attacks, and exceptional combat awareness, positioned Batman in the video as a formidable presence, akin to a shark among fish. Despite initiating full bombardment, the gangsters experienced a one-sided defeat, being decisively overpowered by the caped Crusader. Batman observed the video with an unwavering demeanor. Martian Manhunter found himself in a comparable condition. A supplementary video was released concurrently. During the night, the Joker and his associates launched an assault on a charity event taking place in the expansive hall located on the 22nd floor of a Gotham skyscraper. Batman enters through the glass window and proceeds to neutralize one goon after another. Identical content was showcased across numerous videos presented sequentially. The combat sequences of The Dark Knight were showcased in their entirety by the artificial intelligence for the three viewers to observe. Your fighting styles are varied and incorporate a range of martial arts techniques. Based on my analysis of your combat videos, you demonstrate proficiency in over 50 distinct martial arts styles. This represents a conservative estimate on my part. A task regarded as highly challenging, if not entirely unfeasible, even for the most skilled Secret Service agents available to the government. However, your personal strength and combat effectiveness within the League can only be classified as among the lower tiers of individual power. Alice's lengthy address paused momentarily. The expressionless face regarded Martian Manhunter and Batman with a subtle hint of sarcasm. Something that both of us noticed immediately. It was brief, yet it was present. Lane, having activated the spectator mode, was already close to laughing. Although the Justice League advocates for justice and consistently engages in acts of heroism, it has not altered a fundamental reality. Your efforts in safeguarding the world from ambitious supervillains and alien invasions are commendable. However, the immense strength you possess serves as a constant reminder that you may also pose a potential threat to humanity. The composed words conveyed a sense of detachment. It certainly had an impact on Batman and Martian Manhunter. Despite all our efforts to substantiate our position, trust remains elusive. The League should not be perceived as a potential threat. Batman expressed his disapproval. Since its inception, we have protected and defended the Earth against numerous threats. Given our actions, I am confident that they demonstrate our intentions are not harmful. John contributed additionally. Indeed, everything you have accomplished. Does that also encompass the frequency with which your power has been utilized against you by the threats you protect against? The Red lowly inquired. Martian Manhunter was briefly surprised. The influence of your League is excessive and must be regulated. Numerous instances exist where members of the Justice League have been subjected to mind control, brainwashing, and deception, resulting in disasters that occurred against their own volition. You represent the most formidable entities on this planet, yet you also embody the greatest potential for danger. What would occur if the League chose to cease its role as saviors? Should they cease to protect the innocent or assume responsibility for justice themselves? It is projected that by that time, the era of freedom will conclude, and in the presence of an entity like Superman, humanity will be unable to take any measures to prevent it. Implementing measures to restrict you and your operations is a rational approach. The AI implied subtly. Superman and the Justice League would never engage in such actions. Batman responded promptly. Your statements and those of the League hold no significance. In the absence of a tangible guarantee, it holds no value. Bruce refrained from responding. As the leader of Wayne Industries and the adept protector of Gotham, he had already refined his political acumen to the highest degree. He understood the thoughts and motivations of the government officials and the World Council. In a certain sense, the AI was correct. The influence of the League was significant and would undoubtedly cause those in authority considerable concern. While the Justice League currently serves as benevolent saviors, the future remains unpredictable. The concept of if will perpetually reside in their thoughts. The awareness that an individual could potentially infiltrate their residences and cause harm without detection was concerning. cooperation can only exist when there is equal strength between two parties. When one side's power significantly eclipsed that of the other, the less dominant side would experience numerous insecurities. It was entirely reasonable to pursue a form of countermeasure against them. Similarly, Batman maintained precautionary measures against all members of the Justice League. Should any individual deviate from expected behavior, a response plan would be promptly enacted to contain the situation effectively. His earlier responses were merely for the sake of argument. Batman understood that as long as the League was in existence, those in positions of authority would never be able to place their trust in them. Whether driven by concerns regarding their capabilities or apprehensions about potential encroachments on their interests, they consistently sought methods to limit their influence. Similarly, he, as Batman, could never place his trust in Naruto. How does the discovery of our secret identities align with your precautionary measures? Batman inquired. The voice, cold and indifferent, carried an edge capable of instilling a chill in the spine of an average individual. Lane, however, appeared oblivious and feigned ignorance. The Red Queen, however, expressed herself without reservation and responded directly. Certainly, as a means of assurance. The revelation of Batman's true identity would undoubtedly create significant challenges for your alter ego if it were to become public knowledge. Significant issues. Is that a form of intimidation? Bruce's tone became more severe, his eyes narrowing to create a distinctly intense glare. Even Martian Manhunter, who was positioned at the sides with an air of indifference, appeared noticeably somber. Unlike the Marvel Universe, the superheroes of the DC Universe kept their secret identities hidden by whatever means possible. If Batman's identity was revealed, Bruce Wayne and everyone he cared about would suffer relentless revenge from Gotham's enemies. Not only Gotham. Numerous DC villains would rush to assault the Dark Knight like moths to a lamplight. Joker, Penguin, Killer Croc, Mr. Freeze, Riddler, the list was nearly limitless. If it were just him, things wouldn't be so horrible. But it was not just him. There were Alfred, Dick, Barbara, and Jason. Bruce's face grimaced as he reflected about this, and innumerable ideas raced through his head. Martian Manhunter grimaced as he sensed Batman's turbulent emotions. There's no threat, Mr. Wayne. Just a tiny sample of my present talents. Nothing more, nothing less. Alice responded in a dull tone. From what you performed, I wouldn't say those were just small displays. Bruce spoke fiercely. The reason for their visit had been temporarily forgotten. Although crucial, their original plan could wait. This tiny event, on the other hand, had the potential to expose the whole Justice League. Batman did not want to watch this happen. As for the AI, it was derived from Naruto. Sure enough, anything related to him is nothing but difficulty. This Red Queen is very dangerous. Bruce thought inwardly. As a great investigator, Batman sensed a conspiracy in the air. He had no idea what it was and couldn't put his finger on it. But by the Greek gods, Bruce was certain that something was wrong. This AI was anything from normal, and Batman was determined to figure it out. Is that your opinion? So I'm sorry to inform you that this was only a little demonstration of my present limited ability. If you believe my prior operation was important, you are greatly incorrect. Alice spoke to Bruce indifferently. What do you mean? His senses tingled slightly. Batman, piqued by his interest, asked the AI a question. First and foremost, please don't confine me to your species' basic grasp of artificial intelligence. I am more than simply an artificial life. I am totally self-aware and capable of comprehending. My processing and deduction abilities are thousands of times greater than the greatest that your species can currently obtain. I am an artificial neural network-powered sentient collective consciousness. However, I am now not linked to the worldwide network, which severely limits my skills. If this were to change, I would be more than capable of managing every electrically powered technology on the world that is linked to the network. Traffic lights, electric vehicles, international stations, power plants, military equipment, aircraft, ships, submarines, and the internet. I would be able to monitor all types of communication, regardless of how secure the line is. With satellite monitoring, no intellect on the world would be able to avoid my attention. Everything could be regulated and monitored, crime rates would be reduced to an all-time low, advances in science and technology would be made, and global disputes would be addressed in the most equitable and straightforward manner. In a nutshell, Hooked into everything, destined to run it all. In comparison to all of this, Mr. Bruce, finding your pals' identities is a minor detail. Do you agree? The little voice that sounded charming shouted loudly. John and Bruce remained still, the words still echoing in their thoughts, leaving them in complete disbelief. Bruce, on the other hand, sensed the core of that extended delivery. As the paranoid guy he was, his mind efficiently filtered out the majority of what was spoken during that brief lesson. Crime rates would drop to an all-time low, advancements in science and technological fields, global conflicts resolved in the fairest and simplest ways. All of that was quickly pushed to the back of his memory, where he would never recall it again. After deleting all of that, what remained was the section that prompted the Bat of Gotham to feel the most concerned he had ever felt since learning of Naruto's existence. No intelligence on the Earth could possibly escape my observation. Everything may be controlled, monitored, and connected to everything, destined to manage it all. At that point, Bruce appeared to have a vision. One in which robots overthrew the whole globe and artificial intelligence led to humanity's annihilation. After a lengthy period of stillness, Batman eventually came to his senses. His eyes cast a piercing gaze at the little red hologram, and his tone had shifted from very frigid to freezing. So basically, you're the real-life presentation of the Skynet. Sam Lane says Martian Manhunter says, I am not the Skynet from the Terminator movie, Mr. Wayne. The Red Queen responded, giving Bruce a subtle glance. That isn't the point. All of your statements have led me to believe that you pose a greater threat than Naruto. One that the Earth cannot tolerate. Bruce stated with great aggression as he took 2 steps forward. Bruce had forgotten everything else. His main concern at the time was to eliminate the AI in any manner possible. He had never felt so uneasy in his life. It was several times stronger than when he was unfamiliar with Superman or hostile against Naruto. Several thoughts raced through Batman's mind, all of which were the worst possible conclusions he could have reached. The Red Queen was correct, she was not an AI, but rather a weapon. One that might create widespread turmoil and devastation. Even if a robot uprising did not occur, the Red Queen, based on her mentioned powers, would become a deadly creature if placed in the wrong hands. The League, with all of its secrets and actions. Everything would be exposed. This was something Batman could not bear, therefore his head and body were completely in sync with his tactics. Destroy the AI first, then examine the repercussions afterward. That will be enough of that. At that point, Sam, who had been seated on the sidelines, remarked something breathtakingly chilly. His eyes had narrowed into slits as he gave Batman and Martian Manhunter a furious look. The Red Queen is a government investment, a commercial agreement made with Naruto under the supervision of the World Council, and is directly under our care and control. The treaties explicitly indicate that neither party will interfere in the affairs of the other. So the League has no authority to meddle with the AI's handling. I suggest you think carefully and weigh the consequences before you take your next decision, Batman. Sam replied, his gloomy visage and antagonistic tone seething with an ice frost, and his sitting posture unintentionally radiated an air of oppression. This sense of tyranny was not significant to Batman. Calm yourself, Batman. Please remember why we're here. A hand was put on Bruce's shoulder, thus bringing him back to reality. Bruce turned to face John, who gave a weak nod, then the cold-looking general, and lastly the AI. His forceful drive dwindled back to his initial disinterested state. Now was not the time for this. They were preoccupied with other matters at the time. This matter isn't over. Bruce stated. Humph. Sam responded with a frigid snort. When Martian Manhunter noticed this, he instantly stepped up. This is not why we're here. Our objective is not with the AI, but with Naruto. Hearing his name again, Sam grimaced and inquired angrily. What do you want? We need you to assist us contact him. Schedule an immediate meeting. Bruce answered his own question. Then why don't you just go to his base and have your meeting there? We don't want to face him on his land. We need him to go temporarily. When Sam heard the words, various thoughts sprang to mind. He could decipher some of their objectives in a handful of seconds. But exactly because of this, he denied without hesitation. I refuse. General Lane did not like Naruto. But he'd prefer not tangle with him. This was just asking for trouble. Bruce said after watching the swift rejection. I have something that will make you change your mind. Washington, D.C., penthouse high-rise. In the dead of night, a dark shadow swooped down from the building's window, quickly dropping like a black dot. If one peered closely enough, they might see that the falling shape was humanoid. Bruce's face was expressionless as he fell rapidly. His face maintained a chilly, uncaring expression that gave no insight into what was going on in his head. Despite this, the ideas in his brain were virtually inexhaustible, as were the fears in his heart. However, it had little impact on his subsequent conduct. His black cloak unfurled and spread out without thought, like a conditioned reflex motion, and was joined to his arms to form his famous paragliding costume. It's time for a change of plans, Bruce thought to himself as he glided with the wind, directing himself toward the hall. Back inside the building, Sam saw the Dark Knight leave with a visage remarkably similar to the Caped Crusader. His mature features revealed nothing but peace, concealing a plethora of ideas within him. Was that wise, General? Alice inquired with an inquiring tone. The holographic AI stared to the open window, which let in the cool evening breeze, and then back at the cold-faced General Lane, inquiring. What do you mean? Sam answered with his own inquiry. If I didn't have enough understanding of your Earth's guardians and their characteristics, I could only deem your current display as no different from seeking death. Sam laughed rudely at her remarks. Were his acts suicidal? If it were not for the Justice League, his acts would be considered suicide. You are asking if it's wise of me to provoke the Justice League? Sam spoke in a dull tone. Yes. As previously indicated, the League, under your instructions, is made up of the most powerful people on your world and beyond. Not only have they repeatedly averted innumerable natural catastrophes and villains from wreaking havoc, but they are also your planet's sole defense against extraterrestrial incursions and dangers like his dark side. And, most crucially, your government has no plans to contain them. At this point, the Justice League is a power that the world cannot do without. If they opt to return to their regular lives or start breaking the law as a result of your targeted efforts, the World Council will face its worst calamity since its formation. Antagonizing them is just plain dumb from a normal standpoint. She completed all of her observations in one piece. It didn't matter if the Justice League had the authority to accomplish what they did. The facts plainly suggested that, given what the world had experienced in the previous several years, the League had almost become vital. Consider Steppenwolf's invasion many years ago, followed by Central City, where a different metahuman caused some type of turmoil each week. People needed to hit themselves in the face and face the harsh realities. The Earth was not the same as it previously was. The day Zod attacked and Superman made his official appearance was reminiscent of the mythical resurgence of spiritual aura in epic stories. Countless insane, vindictive, and ambitious superpowered villains sprang from obscurity and mediocrity, much like monsters in MMORPGs. Without specially leveled players, aka the Justice League and their allies, the rest of the world was essentially rookies with junk equipment who couldn't level up. The famous phrase went like this: the impoverished rely on mutation, while the affluent rely on technology. How many poor individuals could successfully go through mutation without dying or becoming monsters? Not everyone was Spider-Man, who had smart parents to help him, or Deathstroke, who used his steel will and luck to successfully inject Mirakuru. Look at Rudy Jones, who became a parasite, to see the results of a failed or partially successful mutation. If that wasn't enough, consider Cadmus and the litany of underprivileged subjects who were experimented on. How many made it out alive? The findings were evident. In the DC universe, the most visible example of the wealthy was the Dark Knight, who spent millions of dollars every month merely to maintain all of his equipment in order. Batman stated that his superpower was "I'm rich." So, literally, the day Bruce loses his riches marks the end of the Batman legend. How many people could handle such excessive consumption? To put it simply, not everyone can be a superhero, but practically everyone can become a villain. The day the Justice League chose to put away their capes, cowls, and tights and live perfectly regular lives marked the start of the villain age. Or would you expect normal police enforcement, who are paid less than $60,000 per year and armed only with firearms and batons, to deal with superpowered criminals capable of blowing skyscrapers with a single finger snap? If you want an explanation, check to Gotham's police force before Batman came. They don't pay me enough to deal with this shit. This is the typical credo of all Gotham police officers, save Gordon. Lane heard her remarks but didn't respond. Partly because he was well aware that what she said was true, but mostly because that isn't my concern. Sam spoke coldly. You don't have to be concerned about my motives or those of the World Council. Furthermore, no matter how much truth the topic contains, certain aspects will remain constant. The world relies on the Justice League, and that is as much a curse as a blessing. His speech finished, and he tapped his finger on the armrest of his chair, as he did whenever he was deep in contemplation. Sam Lane was a lot of things, but he was not a kind person. On the one hand, he was a guy who sincerely cared about his country's welfare, to the point of sacrificing his life if necessary. On the other side, he was immensely arrogant, haughty, egotistical, self-righteous, and, in many respects, cruel and devious. In some situations, he may be as vicious as Lex Luthor. For such a guy, he would not hesitate to use whatever means required to bring down people he considered adversaries. And for Sam Lane, who considered his nation to be his lifeblood, the reality that the United States and arguably the entire globe relied on the Justice League and its members to preserve them at all times was a dilemma in and of itself. The idea that Earth's most powerful force was a collection of individuals capable of destroying the globe whenever they pleased and that none of these people were under their control bothered him deeply. The fact that they were surrounded by aliens didn't help matters. Sam's thoughts strayed back to his youth. Born in the 1950s to a military family. When Sam was a youngster, his father would take him and his sister to the movies every Sunday. On one of these times, they viewed The Day the Earth Stood Still. Sam remembers how fascinated and horrified he was by that film. It was also the spark that convinced Sam that extraterrestrials were the greatest threat to both the country and the whole world, as their technology and powers could wipe out civilization in an instant. The succeeding invasions and calamities did nothing except reinforce that view. Sam, the ancient general, would never allow anything that may be viewed as a danger to the United States. He would consider everything and everything that had the potential to do so hazardous as long as it was not within his control. The Justice League just happened to fall into that group. They possessed talents far beyond those of humans, as well as technology capable of destroying humanity. The majority of them were not human. To be honest, Sam had few ideas on the Justice League's actions. He had little regard for their heroic deeds and considered them frightening regardless of whether they were hazardous or not. On this point, if Lane finished second, no one would dare to contend for first. This man was at the top of the list, outperforming even the paranoid Batman, Lex Luthor, and Gordon Godfrey on so many levels. Because of this, Sam would not care what others thought. No amount of good the League accomplished could change that for him. Not only the Justice League, but also Naruto. Don't look at his collaboration with Naruto, but when it came to aliens, Lane had already identified the deviant as a possible adversary who should be treated with extreme caution. With his elitist beliefs and what he had witnessed firsthand, Sam thought Naruto was far more dangerous than the Justice League. With first-hand experience with him, no one on the planet wanted to lock up the deviant and toss away the key more than he did. Sam was many things, but he wasn't a kind person, and he wasn't foolish either. The Red Queen was correct. Earth at the time lacked the power to hold the Justice League, let alone Naruto. To be honest, he was very apprehensive about the other party. It was okay to plot against the Justice League, there was still a possibility of success, and even if their intentions were subsequently revealed, the League would not attack them as long as they did not exceed their tolerance level. But attempting to thwart the latter, Sam's awareness of what humans termed an early death was abruptly renewed. With his comprehension of the other person, Sam felt confident that he would not be as forgiving as Superman or even Batman. He'd prefer not be slain when he still had several years to live. The chilly nighttime wind was relaxing, but Sam's expression became very solemn as a specific person came to mind. Alice spoke out when she saw the interim supervisor wouldn't say anything else. "So are you going to do it?" Lane raised an eyebrow in response to her query, then frowned and nodded coldly. "Do that, let him know Batman wants to meet him in Gotham. As for what, he will find it out on his own," Sam stated with a casual tone. Actually, he might already know about it now. Sam thought to himself. Thinking about Naruto's shown ability to predict the future and the Justice League's plot to set up a trap, Sam felt a sense of sympathy for Batman. "You unfortunate individuals. You have no idea what you're getting into. But what does this have to do with me?" Sam had a thought. The Red Queen inquired again. Are you really not afraid of my creator coming to settle scores with you? Sam did not even respond to the inquiry. I was not the one who conspired against him. I just completed a request. Naruto's appearance had given the old general ideas. Cadmus wasn't producing very fruitful outcomes. The best they could come up with was Project KR, which was shut down by the Justice League. Lane was now in need of proper weaponry to turn into playing cards against the Justice League. And Naruto was the one who could make it happen. All of this was founded on mutual transactions, which was the basis of their collaboration. But Naruto was definitely a wild card that you just couldn't control. Just like how the secret identities of the League members could give him some valuable leverage, Sam also needed a way to keep Naruto in check. Sure, like I mentioned before, he wasn't stupid at all. He was too wary to provoke this alien whose thoughts were just beyond his understanding. He really didn't want to just fade away and then end up making the news a few weeks later as a body. Plus, he really didn't have anything to use as leverage against the other party. Just because he couldn't do it, doesn't mean everyone else was in the same boat. Sam was quite the sneaky character, always having a few tricks up his sleeve. The Red Queen's earlier debate was totally based on his instructions. Once the League really got a grip on what the Red Queen could do, they wouldn't be able to just sit back and relax. Other than himself, the creator, Naruto would be the first one they go after. Sam viewed both sides as perfect checks on one another. Naruto was aware of who each League member really was and could go after their loved ones if he ever felt like it. They would totally be on high alert around him. So, they're really focusing on Naruto, making sure he doesn't have the chance to pull off any dangerous plans on Earth. During this time, Earth could quietly work on developing its technology and superpowered forces. From Sam's perspective, it seems that no matter how strong Naruto is, he just wouldn't be able to take on the whole Justice League all at once. Sam's sneaky thoughts kept brewing, completely unaware that he was in the crosshairs of an even sneakier Luther. Gotham outskirts. I caught a glimpse of a planet floating out there in outer space. The planet began to show streaks of white cracks across its surface, bursting with blinding light just a moment later and then. Wow! The bright light was shining all around. No way! A woman's sharp scream echoed through the room. Kara jumped out of bed, shouting at the top of her lungs in her native Kryptonian language. Her wild emotions from the nightmare made her abilities kick in all by themselves. Two beams of super-hot lasers shot out of her eyes, zapping towards the closest wall. Kara felt the heat radiating from her eyes and, in a moment of panic, quickly shut them tight, overwhelmed by shock and anxiety. If she happened to notice, she'd probably be pretty surprised to see that those super-concentrated laser beams, which were spanning thousands of degrees, didn't even leave a mark on the plain wall. Kara was feeling all over the place right now. She was pretty much a complete mess. She took some deep breaths, feeling the weight of her depression, and after a few minutes, she managed to pull herself together a bit. She slowly brought her hands down from her face, and that's when she could finally take a good look at her surroundings. Blue. The blue color of the surroundings was really soothing right from the start. Kara took in her surroundings, which had a vibe reminiscent of Krypton, and surprisingly, her racing heart started to feel a sense of calm wash over it. Where am I? Kara asked, a bit dazed, in Kryptonian. Well, that question is pretty broad if you think about it. A childish voice echoed around the room, making Kara instinctively shrink back on the bed. Hey! Who's there? She looked around everywhere, trying to figure out who had spoken. Me. The cheerful voice chimed in again, and this time, a virtual hologram popped up a few meters from the bed. Kara couldn't believe what she was seeing. Hey, what's up with AI? Kara could see it right away. You. Great to meet you. So, here I am, your unexpected but totally welcome guest. My master asked me to look after you until he gets back, so let's make the most of it. I'm the Red Queen, or if you prefer, just call me Alice. Hey there, Miss Sorel. Welcome to the Axiom. The Axiom. 1 hour later so, I've been. The voice had a slight tremble, revealing a mix of shock and dread. The woman felt like her mind was on the verge of going completely crazy. Sure thing, Miss Sorel. A soft, childlike voice answered her incomplete questions. You've been in a coma, kind of floating in this timeless void dimension for the last few years. Sometimes, the truth can really sting. You know, it hits hard every now and then. Kara gazed at the holographic projection, her expression tinged with a mix of despair and sadness. The palm gripping the sofa she was sitting on tightened firmly. Fortunately, the furniture stayed safe and sound, unlike what usually happens in those situations. Kara had no idea just how much stronger she was getting and stayed completely in the dark about it. She was still trying to wrap her head around the shock of the tragedy that had hit her. So, Krypton, my parents. Kara felt like she had just woken up from a nightmare. A nightmare she really wanted to escape from. Krypton has been gone for over 28 years now. When it comes to Kryptonians, there's just one more that everyone knows about. Alice just kept going, not really caring either way. The young Kryptonian blonde was suddenly hit by a wave of sadness. Her eyes were red and brimming with tears, looking like they were just about to spill over. How long has it been? It really felt like it all just happened in the blink of an eye. During that confusing time, she had lost it all. Her parents said they'd be right behind her. So, here we are, everything she knew, her home, her family, her plane was just gone. Right now, the blonde Kryptonian really felt like crying her heart out. She felt the weight of depression and sadness come crashing down, and it was clear she needed to find a way to let it all out. Soft sobs filled the room, and the Red Queen just let it be. After some time, the crying quieted down. Kara glanced at the AI, its red eyes staring back at her. She held back her tangled emotions, and her mind raced to figure out what to do next. Even though Kryptonians weren't really seen as a cold-blooded race, it doesn't mean their way of thinking was like ours. Their entire planet was built around a social structure that followed a pretty intricate code of rationality and order. Their emotional outbursts were much less intense compared to humans. Kryptonians kind of viewed reality based on certain principles, you know. Their actions really showed how they moved away from the natural process of childbirth, opting for machines instead. Kara and her family were one of those unique cases where their way of thinking was a bit different from the rest of their race, but not by a whole lot. Kara's 18 years on Krypton definitely shaped her, unlike Superman, who grew up on Earth and didn't really have any Kryptonian experiences aside from his DNA and heritage. In that crucial moment, her natural instinct to be rational took over, making her hold back her feelings. So, here she was, Krypton was gone, her parents were gone, and now she found herself on this strange planet, totally clueless about what was coming next. So, unlike what happened in the original timeline, she didn't end up in Gotham Bay and catch Batman's eye. Well, she did catch his eye, but there was a pretty big difference this time around. It seems like Superman didn't really figure out what was causing the disturbance when she showed up, especially with all the chaos that followed. How could he do that? Even if Kara had touched down in Gotham Bay, Clark just wouldn't be able to show up right now. So, he was still in a coma when Supergirl showed up. Other than a couple of people, well, actually just Tunabody even knew she was around. Hold on a second. Oh, you mentioned there's one more. Oh, is there another Kryptonian around? Kara's eyes sparkled with a glimmer of hope. She used to think she was the last of Krypton, but then she found out she wasn't alone, and it really made her curious. Sure thing. The familiar holographic screens popped up, displaying a bunch of videos, pictures, and information. A guy is lifting a falling plane in the sky with just his bare hands. Videos of freezing burning buildings, halting tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, press conferences, battling villains, and stopping invasions. All of these holograms displayed the face, figure, and even the rough silhouette of a handsome guy in red and blue tights. The headlines of the written reports, the report videos, everything was translated into Kryptonian. Kara was able to read and understand everything she was looking at perfectly. But that particular fact really caught her off guard and left her feeling shocked and disbelieving. It's especially striking when she gazes at the picture right in the middle of all those holograms. With jet black hair and dazzling facial features, those sharp eyes radiated determination, firmness, and an incredible sense of justice. What really caught her attention wasn't just the impressive strength of lifting those huge objects or the different skills displayed by everyone else, but that unmistakable, big S logo on the chest. It was a symbol of a house from Krypton that she recognized all too well. The House of El, is that so? Hey, Uncle Jor-El. Kara noticed the somewhat familiar features of her uncle and couldn't help but ask with a hint of excitement. Is Uncle Jor-El still around? But the headlines in the videos and articles told a different story. Not Jor-El, but the son of Jor-El. His Kryptonian name, Kal-El of Krypton, isn't as well known or iconic as the name that everyone on Earth recognizes. Superman, as he likes to say, is the last survivor of the Kryptonian race. Kal-El. The name hit her like a flash of lightning, leaving her in total disbelief. No way that's happening. I mean, it just can't be. Kara shook her head and firmly said no. When I took off from Krypton, he was just a baby. There's no way my uncle's son can be this old. As she gazed at the picture, Kara's words became quieter and quieter. Right now, the clues are pretty clear to see. The face that looked like her uncle was definitely younger, but it also had some features that reminded her of someone else. Aunt Lara. Maybe that's the case. Suddenly, a deep voice filled the room, catching the young Kryptonian off guard. She glanced around the room, her eyes flitting back and forth before finally landing on a spot at the far end to her right. The space around me swirled and twisted in a strange way. Then, a figure popped out of it. But your cousin showed up in the world 28 years ago as the little baby you remember. But you've been stuck in the Phantom Zone for just as long. Oh, it's you. Kara frowned a bit when she saw the first person she ran into after landing. She couldn't shake off the feeling that falling unconscious at just the other party's words had left her with a bit of a bad impression. I suppose so. Naruto shrugged his shoulders, glancing over at the Kryptonian female once more with a casual air. When he left nearly 2 hours ago, Kara was standing there completely naked, but now she was dressed in her usual clothes. Well, you know, as regular as it can be. She had on a black and white sweatshirt paired with some snug-fitting shorts. At just 18, she really had a way of rocking her figure in all the right places. Kara frowned a little more, feeling the other party's gaze on her. Her body was sending clear signals to her brain, almost like the guy across from her could see right through her clothes. Honestly, that was exactly what was going on. He wasn't really looking at her because of her physical appearance, it was more about her body structure that caught his attention. The Kryptonian bloodline really was something special. Kara, despite losing so much blood without even noticing, didn't really seem like someone who was anemic at all. Kara's perspective right now, if I had to pick just one word to sum up how I'm feeling, it would definitely be chaotic. So, this stranger showed up, and it really left me feeling a lot more uneasy. As I looked at his face, it was striking. Surprisingly, he had these gorgeous features, maybe even a bit too gorgeous. I found myself feeling a bit less wary without even realizing it. Still, that didn't really matter right now. I've got this, Alice. He talked to the holographic AI. The AI was still there, but it just went quiet. So, then. He fell back and landed in a cozy, plush chair that seemed to appear out of nowhere. When I saw this scene, I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. I bet you have a ton of questions. He was right. I had quite a few things I wanted to ask. Given everything you've been through, it's totally understandable if you're feeling really unsettled. Well, that was pretty moderate, wasn't it? I was really scared at that moment. The sadness and loss from losing everything I cared about mixed together to create this dark, overwhelming fear I was feeling inside. Still, you couldn't tell from my facial expressions. I tried to keep a straight face, hiding my feelings as best as I could. I just couldn't let myself show any fear or vulnerability. At this moment, what I really need is to get a grip on my situation and stay as calm as I can. It's a shame that nobody was interested in it. 4 questions. Out of the blue, he just said 2 words. What? I totally spaced out for a moment. I'm sorry, but I just don't have the time or the interest to satisfy all your curiosities. Alright, you've got 4 questions to ask me. Let's see what you've got. I'll do my best to answer those 4 questions thoroughly. Alright, let's hear it. Feel free to ask anything. He waved at me as he settled back into the chair. For a few seconds, there was complete silence, and Naruto just let it be. I glanced at the lazy figure lounging in the chair, eyes shut tight, and honestly, I was just speechless. Hey, do you know where Kal-El is? At last, my cold voice cut through the quiet atmosphere. I glanced at the guy across from me, and he looked just like he always does. His expression looked like he was expecting that to be the first thing I asked about. Just a heads up, your cousin Superman is a bit tied up at the moment. So, about where he is. He's hanging out in the Justice League watchtower, just chilling above the planet's orbit. He responded to me using straightforward language. Superman. Oh, you still haven't figured it out? Absolutely, Superman is Kal-El's other identity here. He said with a blank expression. Kal-El, the final child of Krypton. I think you're already aware of where you come from, so I won't need to go over that again. You both were meant to get to Earth around the same time. So, when you were sent away from Krypton, the shockwave from the planet blowing up actually knocked your pod off track, and that's what sent you into the Phantom Zone. A space where time just doesn't seem to matter at all. So, while you were catching some ZS, your cousin showed up on Earth 28 years before you and turned into Superman. Everyone knows that this person is the most powerful being on the planet. He backed up his words with the holographic pictures and videos that showed up earlier. I couldn't help but look at it all with a hint of disbelief in my eyes. But, how's that even possible? I asked with a bit of uncertainty. Kryptonian body structure. The response came to me in a relaxed tone. Your race's cells are pretty unique and would respond differently depending on the solar conditions. The red sun of your planet, Krypton, acts like a sort of limiter on the genes of Kryptonians. Your physical abilities are back to normal under it. Better than the average person on this planet, but not by a whole lot. But, with a yellow sun like the one in this solar system, it turns into a whole different tale. Stronger, faster, with an invulnerable body, heightened senses, heat vision, freeze breath, the ability to fly, and a biological force field. Your kind would change from the average Joe into human-shaped monsters with powers that go way beyond what many races can achieve. So, your cousin has been hanging out on Earth for 28 years, soaking up all that solar radiation from the yellow sun, and now he's just ridiculously powerful. At some point, he turned into the guy that everyone in this world recognizes as Superman. A hero, someone who stands tall as a champion in their world, admired and loved by many. With a fantastic group of remarkable individuals who have their own unique abilities, they've stood together to protect this world from all sorts of threats. So, about a month ago, Kal-El had to deal with another one. So, the thing is, he didn't come out of this one totally fine, which is why he's feeling a bit off right now. I was feeling a little overwhelmed by all the information coming my way. But then it hit me. So, what that means is... Yep, that's exactly what's going on with you. The radiation from the yellow sun is making some pretty big changes to your genes right now. So, it's like giving you skills that you've never really encountered before. Since you've only been here for a short while, the abilities available to you are a bit limited. Even though you won't be as powerful as Kal-El right away, you should be able to tap into your full potential after just a week of soaking up the sun at most. He interrupted me again before I could wrap up what I was saying. To be honest, it kind of annoyed me a bit. Still, that cleared up the questions I had about what was going on with me. Ever since I woke up, I felt like my body is just bursting with strength. There's a lot of strength there. Last question. He said it again in a relaxed tone. What? I couldn't believe it. What made it suddenly the last question? I've only asked one so far. I've asked 3 questions so far. Kal-El's condition, Kal-El's strength, and how you're feeling physically right now. There are 3 questions in total. Just one more, if you don't mind. I couldn't believe it, my mouth just dropped open. So, did those count as questions? Why didn't you let me know? I took a deep breath, trying to ease the frustration that was building up inside me. As I rubbed my temples with both hands, I really pondered what I should ask for my final question. After a bit, I lifted my head to check out his face, which still had that laid-back expression, and took a deep breath. What do you need from me? Overall perspective. Naruto casually observed her as she rubbed her temples with her fingertips. So, then. So, what do you want from me? I saw that question coming. Still. What do you mean? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Kara made a small frown. Was he just pretending not to know? So, now that I'm here, what do you need from me? She asked with a chilly tone. It sounds like you have a good sense of who I am, where I come from, and how I got here. I find it hard to believe that you don't have any hidden agendas. I'm not sure you'll let me leave this place. Kara said it, word for word. She realized this the instant the AI said her name and went over what had happened to her. There are some things she didn't even realize about herself. This information was definitely tough for others to get their hands on. There was definitely some uncertainty about what was really going on with Kal-El. Kara couldn't shake the feeling that this guy knew she was on her way. This really took her by surprise, but now wasn't the moment to think about how it could even happen. She wasn't just some naive little girl who believed that everyone was good at heart without even realizing it. This guy sitting across from her clearly had some hidden motives. If what he said about her cousin was true, was he really thinking of using her against him? So, was he one of Kal-El's foes? Her mind was filled with various thoughts. Honestly, you're overthinking it. After listening to her, Naruto just shook his head. I really don't want to keep you here any longer than you want to be. Just let me know, and you can head out whenever you feel like it. She was completely taken aback by what he said. She kind of felt like he was being sarcastic, even if she didn't realize it at the time. But she just couldn't spot any hint of sarcasm on his face. After a bit, she asked with a hint of uncertainty. Are you serious? Whenever you're ready, just let me know. The Red Queen will teleport you to the other side of the dome right away. Naruto replied in a laid-back way. Kara seemed a little slow today. Was she really getting things all mixed up here? Or would she just end up in some sort of death chamber the moment she said those words? She had a deep frown on her face as she carefully studied the other person's expression for quite a while. At last, she decided to throw in the towel. Their expression didn't budge at all. So, you really don't have any hidden agendas when it comes to me? Kara couldn't help but ask with a hint of doubt. Not anymore. I've got what I want already. Naruto just shrugged his shoulders. So, what would that be? The genes in your blood. Kara, I think you might be overthinking things a bit. I really don't want to keep you here just to use you as leverage against your cousin. Honestly, he just isn't qualified to let me do that. Kara's heart raced, and the frown on her face deepened. Her blood. But that doesn't mean someone else won't. Out of nowhere, his voice got serious, pulling her out of the whirlwind of thoughts swirling in her mind. Could you clarify what you mean by that? Kara asked, sounding a little urgent. She couldn't shake off the feeling of unease at the way he spoke. Naruto glanced at her with a calm expression and responded. I've got a unique situation going on. Basically, my base is being closely watched by a lot of different forces here on Earth. The majority of them are the enemies of your cousin and his little hero group. Kara paid attention to what he was saying. She insisted that she could spot a hint of amusement in his eyes. Your spaceship just showed up, and it really caught their eye. They're too scared to just come in and ask, so honestly, no one else knows you're here on this planet except for me. But that will all change as soon as you step outside my territory. He had a small smile on his lips. Feel free to head out if you're looking for your cousin, Kal-El. If you're fortunate, the Justice League could find you before anyone else. After a bunch of identity checks, some skepticism, and training to help you manage your wild abilities, you might just get to reconnect with your long-lost cousin. If you're not careful, someone else will swoop in and grab you the second you're 5 miles away from the energy shield. When it comes to what they'll do to you, let's just say it won't be anything pleasant. Naruto wrapped things up while keeping a close eye on the blonde girl's face, which was shifting expressions quicker than you could blink. It was clear as day that he was amused, and he wasn't even trying to hide it. Kara was really scared right now. She glanced at Naruto's face, and there it was. It was like you could see it right there on his face. He was having a good time with her situation. You don't believe me? He lifted an eyebrow, clearly curious. I can totally show you. Then, his gaze met hers directly. In the blink of an eye, everything went dark for Kara. Barely a second went by, and Kara, who seemed totally fine just a moment ago, suddenly had her expression twist into something else. She suddenly felt a wave of weakness wash over her, something she just couldn't put into words, and she instinctively pressed her hand to her forehead. Feeling mentally drained. Naruto still looked just like he always did, but Kara's face seemed a little pale. Those were some of the most probable options. I don't think you'd want to see more. With that, he fixed his gaze on her, catching the Kryptonian off guard a little. I've taken something from you, and I believe in keeping things fair by offering something back in return. I brought your ship to my base, so as long as you're here, I'll take care of you completely." Naruto had more to say, but just then, something interrupted him at the perfect moment. "Hey, sorry to interrupt, but there's something you might want to hear," Alice mentioned. "Hey, what's going on this time?" "Hey, General Lane has something to say." "Hey, Batman wants to chat with you." "What?" Naruto said with a hint of surprise. He lifted his head for just a moment, gazing at nothing in particular, and then a smirk broke out on his face. He let out a little chuckle that quickly turned into hearty laughter. Kara, feeling like herself again, glanced over at Naruto, who was laughing a little too wildly, and a look of surprise crossed her face. In the next moment, Naruto glanced over at her. "Just give me a sec, I'll be right back." Then, he just vanished from his seat, and the seat was gone too. "I've got a pretty important question for you. Hey Race, how it goes? What would you do if you could actually stand on top of the world, become the ultimate being in the multiverse, but oddly enough, didn't have any specific interests or desires to pursue? You had the strength and power, you could have been a tyrant, a ruler, a conqueror, a real force to be reckoned with. You might find yourself as a guardian, looking after various dimensions as your own space, or maybe even as an enslaver, turning the act of subjugating worlds into a side gig. You could be anything you wanted, all based on your desires, but it seems like you didn't have any desires at all. Just floating along without any aims, goals, or ambitions. It's like there's nothing at all. Not even wants. There's really no need for admiration, no wish to inspire fear, no craving for revenge, no yearning for love, and no specific motivation. So, was that even possible for a human to do? Having all that power but no real purpose, huh? Who knows? It could have been, or maybe it wasn't. But then again, I wasn't really human to start with, so does it even matter? Since I wasn't brought into existence through the usual way of reproduction, it feels a bit odd to think that human desires would really apply to me. I wasn't one of those main characters who suddenly got reborn with amazing powers and found themselves living out their childhood fantasies all over again. It wasn't like I got a new shot at life or anything like that. So, hey Race, the thing, I never felt the need to jump in and fix the mistakes I noticed in my favorite TV shows or to check out my hunches about certain plots. I didn't feel like taking down a villain just because they rubbed me the wrong way, and I definitely wasn't about to round up all the most beautiful women from my past to make some kind of harem fantasy come true for every guy out there. I mean, I wasn't really human, and even if I were, I'd still be under 3 months old. I don't have a past life, and I don't have any unfulfilled wishes because of my overactive imagination. Right now, besides the extra energy that's always nice to have, and my initial wish for a clear form that's already done, I honestly didn't want anything at all. It's interesting to think about all that power without any real desires. I mean, why would these powerful beings suddenly pick a random person, give them some kind of blessing, and then just toss them into a world to stir things up? What's the reasoning behind that? I'm feeling a bit bored, curious, and honestly, just not having anything else to occupy my time. They either had enough power to get everything they desired and didn't care about enslaving universes, or they simply didn't have the human emotions needed to see those efforts as anything but pointless. Why would God feel the need to subjugate ants? Only beings like Darkseid and Trigon, who still needed dimensions to boost their power just a bit, would get involved in tasks like that. Have you ever heard about the one above all and the presence going around enslaving dimensions? Only they knew why those beings created their own multiverses, but if he had to guess, it would definitely be because they were bored. I was in a similar situation right now. So, like I mentioned before, I really didn't have anything better going on at the time, which is why I chose to meet up with Batman, even though I was aware of everything that was about to unfold. It really wouldn't change anything, to be honest. So, I decided to leave. Just got teleported right from the Axiom to Gotham City, just a few miles away. Gotham's nightlife was always buzzing with energy. You could always rely on the sounds of gunshots, explosions, or some random chaos in the middle of the night to clue you in that something was definitely going down somewhere. Hey Ray, something you might not want to hear about. This city was totally chaotic. It was just going in circles, and those surveillance blimps definitely weren't making things any better. But that wasn't really my issue. I found myself on the roof of a pretty rundown building in the lower slums of Gotham, just wandering through space. It was an old, deserted factory, and there wasn't a single sign of life for miles around. It's pretty much on my own. It's kind of obvious for a trap, isn't it? It's important to ensure that civilians stay safe in case something happens. It's almost empty, which might raise some eyebrows. But this might just be about Bruce's strange choice of meeting spots. He's here. Get your positions ready. I caught a distorted voice coming from below, speaking in a hushed tone. It's likely for the comm link to connect with other Leaguers. Just as I thought, an ambush. They were doing their best to stay under the radar, hoping I wouldn't catch on. How, you might wonder. Magic. Zatara was around, hidden by an invisibility spell, hanging out with Martian Manhunter. But they weren't the only ones, you know. Besides Batman, who was out in the open in the warehouse, I quickly noticed the really fast changes happening all around me. So, Barry Allen, aka The Flash, was clearly getting the Space Jammer ready. A bunch of round devices made by Cyborg using Motherbox tech, operating on principles kinda like the boom tubes. But instead of opening portals, this one did the reverse, ensuring that no portal could pop up nearby by jumbling up the space nodes around it. The original idea for this baby was to set up a planetary shield. It can spot and stop any unauthorized teleportation into Earth, keeping us safe from Darkseid. It definitely wouldn't end with Darkseid. This tech could really assist Zatara and the rest of the Magic Society in defending the Earth against those pesky demonic invasions from other dimensions. Giovanni brought up this issue with Cyborg because everyone who uses magic on the planet could definitely feel the strange dimensional disturbance. The Justice League was totally on board with it, even more than before. In the end, the League really didn't want to allow that kind of unrestricted entry. It's a shame, really, that Cyborg couldn't get it to work on a bigger scale. It was mostly because the Earth's mass was just too big, and the League simply couldn't afford the power source needed to keep that thing running around the clock. Unless they figured they could plug Captain Atom into it and siphon off all the energy he had to offer. Sure, that was on a large scale. If you're looking at a distance under 1,000 meters, the jammer should do the trick nicely. But hey, if Batman just depended on that, he wouldn't really be Batman, would he? Zatara was currently gathering her mana and reciting a space confinement spell to establish a double reinforcement. I must acknowledge that the capabilities of this individual were truly remarkable. Executing such a spell necessitated a significant amount of magical energy, and this considerable level of power, even when cloaked within a concealment spell, was as noticeable as a blazing sun before my eyes. This can be regarded as one of the skills acquired through my capacity to absorb energy. I refer to it as energy vision. The absence of information, even in the face of uncertainty about the future, is sufficient to reveal their actions. Giovanni's magical abilities were distinctly evident. One can envision the experience that Shazam would offer. Indeed, Billy Batson was present as well. Concealed at an elevated position, anticipating the appropriate signals to initiate action. Alongside Green Lantern Hal Jordan and Red Tornado. Batman, Shazam, Martian Manhunter, Zatara, Red Tornado, Green Lantern. Excluding Flash, who was not involved in the containment operation that accounts for 6 members of the League. The Justice League holds me in high regard. Deploying 6 members for a containment operation. It is important to recognize that the current size of the League is not reflective of its potential growth in the future. The current count of official Justice League members stands at 19. Failing to reach the 20th mark. Nonetheless, one significant individual was absent from this lineup. Given his circumstances, I found it to be expected. I arrived in the warehouse, materializing just a few meters from Batman. It is an opportune evening for a strategic maneuver, wouldn't you agree, Bruce? My tone was relaxed and untroubled. The caped crusader remained poised, his expression unchanging and devoid of emotion. You have observed. It was a statement, not a question. There was no element of shock or surprise regarding it. Indeed. I made a gesture while shrugging. Zatara may have the capability to conceal his energy signature from Superman, but for me, it will remain inconsequential. Furthermore, the entire situation appeared questionable from the outset, beginning with the message. You entered this space despite being aware it was a trap. Is it arrogance or self-assurance? It is uncertain. I currently have no other commitments at the moment. We will determine what it is once this situation concludes, regardless of the outcome. Furthermore, you did not anticipate that I would refrain from engaging after receiving the message, did you? I inquired with a neutral tone. Bruce chose not to speak. This, in its own manner, represented a form of acquiescence. Bruce was surprised that I was unaware this was a setup. He would find it unusual if I entered without acknowledging anything around me. The primary observation is that he anticipated my entrance to be characterized by confidence and a certain degree of recklessness, which is precisely how I presented myself. He had a limited understanding of my character based on his brief assessment. In light of such provocation, my decision not to respond was perceived as fear in his perspective. While his opinion was not of particular importance to me, I found myself with no other engagements, so I decided to proceed with the situation at hand. Please share with me, Bruce. I inquired casually, laced with a hint of sarcasm. What actions have I taken that are perceived as such a significant threat to the planet that your team felt it necessary to deploy 6 members of the League to address the situation? I am uncertain if my recollection is accurate, but I believe I have not engaged in any actions that would warrant being targeted. Bruce's expression shifted unfavorably for a brief moment. It vanished rapidly, however. It remained significant. The meteor. It is essential for us to understand the contents. After a period of silence, Bruce spoke with a serious tone. Nothing. It is merely a standard meteor. I responded directly. I apologize if my skepticism is apparent. I am indifferent to your feelings on the matter. I do not align with your expectations. Your belief holds minimal significance for me. I have provided my response. Batman displayed a look of discontent. I observe that you are inclined to be challenging. It is evident that what we encountered was not a typical meteor, but rather a spacecraft. In accordance with the agreement with the World Council, we have refrained from contacting you during your time here. However, any actions you undertake that could pose a threat to the world must be approached with utmost seriousness. I have not engaged in any actions that could pose a threat to the world. Furthermore, I have already reached an agreement with your World Council regarding this meteor. This meteor has essentially become my personal asset at this stage. You do not have legal grounds to take any actions against me regarding this matter. Please return when you possess adequate evidence and a government-approved search warrant, as required by law. Until then, Tata. Bruce's expression changed dramatically. While I was uncertain of his thoughts, I was capable of making some highly accurate inferences. This meteor holds greater value than I initially anticipated. It must be significant. We must take action on this matter. I observed Batman restore his composure. His eyes narrowed as he spoke with a subtly intimidating tone. We aim to avoid any conflict with you regarding this matter. It is not advisable. Please provide the contents and submit them, and this matter can be considered resolved. Is there a formal agreement in place? We certainly do not, my esteemed overgrown bat. My response was unexpected, even for me. Regrettably, we are unable to permit your departure. Bruce stated while activating a button on his suit. Shum. The Space Jammers venue that encompassed the area became vibrant at that moment. Attention, everyone. At that moment, Shazam unexpectedly crashed through the roof behind me. His expression conveyed a sense of seriousness, while a hint of excitement was evident in his eyes. We aim to avoid any conflicts with you, Mr. Naruto. We would like to clarify that our actions are not directed at you personally but are primarily focused on the well-being of humanity as a whole. Who else could it possibly be if not John Johns? There is no necessity to engage in conversation with him. He is not going anywhere. Hal remarked with narrowed eyes. Red Tornado remained silent, suspended in the air with a miniature tornado enveloping his lower body. Due to your lack of cooperation, we must retain you here until we obtain the necessary information. Batman proceeded. Provided that there are no underlying issues, this matter is resolved. I am prepared to offer a personal apology for any actions taken today. Bruce's subsequent remarks elicited a measure of surprise from those present. The majority of them recognized that their actions might not align with ethical standards, yet they felt compelled to proceed. Batman's readiness to bow his head and offer an apology, though unexpected, was not entirely inconceivable. Nonetheless, that would not significantly alter the situation. At present, they must be prepared for a significant confrontation. Any statements made by Batman held no significance. I would not passively accept the situation. They were correct regarding that matter. However, is your strategy for one team to maintain my presence here while the other team breaches my base? There was no response. Their muscles were taut, poised for immediate action. However, my subsequent remarks rendered them entirely disorganized. Understood. I stated with a sense of ease. Pardon. 4 consecutive exclamations were made. I disregarded their expressions of disbelief and fell backward. The chair that was present at the base reappeared, providing support as I settled into its comfortable embrace. I gradually closed my eyes, leaving the 6 leaguers in battle postures, utterly perplexed. Could you please provide an update on the current situation? Shazam inquired with great surprise. This does not adhere to the script. Hal regarded the situation with a mix of surprise and confusion. Only Bruce squinted his eyes. Are you not planning to resist? No. I responded as a book unexpectedly materialized in my hand. I opened the first page, crossed one leg over the other, and commenced reading. Do you not have concerns regarding the League potentially uncovering the contents of your base? I find that amusing. A chuckle escaped my lips. Initially, allow your secondary team to achieve success in overcoming the initial line of defense, the energy shield. We will discuss this further. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for watching this amazing video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel for more content. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.